Hello there. I'm Guolong Liang, Outreach Specialist at Agriculture Water Quality Program at UW-Madison Division of Extension. Today, I'm very excited to share our new video series of research updates with you. In this series, we interviewed researchers across multiple disciplines to find innovative yet practical solutions to reduce water quality impacts in agriculture in Wisconsin's Central Sands. In this very first episode, I talked to Dr. Jed Colquhoun, professor at Department of Plant and Agroecosystem Sciences at UW-Madison. We recorded this episode at Hancock Agriculture Research Station earlier this summer, where we chatted about this newly funded project by Rural Partnership Institute and his newest research in interseeding in potatoes and sweet corn. Feel free to go to our website to learn more about other researchers' work, and if you have specific questions, feel free to email us directly. I hope you enjoy this episode.
Can you explain to the audience what we have here?
Sure. So we're at the Hancock Agricultural Research Station in the Central Sands region of Wisconsin, which is a unconfined aquifer, basically a lake that's filled with sand. And below us right now, we have groundwater that serves as a drinking water source for the rural communities around central Wisconsin. And of course, in this sand, it's also great for growing a lot of our high value specialty crops like sweet corn that we have here, potatoes, carrots, and many other processing vegetables. Because the benefit of the sand and the groundwater below is that we can really control water as an input in this situation. We can use our linear irrigation or pivot systems to water when needed, but when we have too much water, it also drains very nicely. Now, the downside of draining nicely, of course, outside of agronomy, is that some of the inputs that we use in agriculture are then at risk of traveling with that drainage into the groundwater below to our drinking water source. So the research that we're doing here in this field and across the station and the state is looking at ways that we can effectively add a filter between the land in which we farm, the crop root zone we call that, and the groundwater beneath us. And this is an example of one of those studies.
Beautiful. And I noticed something a little bit unconventional about sweet corn production where we're standing here right now. Can you explain what's going on in between the rows?
Yeah, great. So in this study, we actually have two different pieces where we're looking at ways to minimize the risk of our crop inputs getting into the groundwater. The first method is less obvious in this, but we're looking at ways to band herbicides directly along the crop and not between the rows, and cutting our use by 2/3 by directing fertilizer just to the crop and not to the weeds or to bare soil between the crop rows. And we compare that to our conventional broadcast system with the idea that if we reduce the inputs, we reduce the risk of them traveling to groundwater. The second factor is more obvious in here and quite beautiful at this stage of the year, and that's looking at ways that we can intercrop or interseed cover crops, in this case yellow mustard. We also have winter rye in this field, in between the sweet corn rows, with the idea that any fertilizer or herbicides not used by the corn crop can be taken up by the yellow mustard and carried over until the yellow mustard senesces and then act as a slow release fertilizer back to the corn without risking putting those inputs in the water. So we're looking at 3 different yellow mustard timings for that seeding into the corn. The first being right when we plant the corn. On the day we plant the corn, we also interseed the yellow mustard or winter rye. We have a timing where we look a week later after corn planting, and one that's 2 weeks later that's just starting to bloom today in this corn. And really what we're trying to find here is an agronomic balance where the intercrop suppresses weeds, captures excess inputs, but doesn't act like a weed itself and suppress sweet corn yield. And there's kind of a magic Goldilocks and 3 bears point in here where it's not too hot, not too cold, but right in the middle where we can achieve all those goals, but still get an economically solvent crop out of the sweet corn.
Absolutely. And in order to make sure that we're not just growing weed, what type of agronomic or economic evaluation are you doing here to make sure that we're tilting the balance to the right amount?
Right, we measure everything we can possibly think of in regards to the crop production itself. So we have stand counts, we have biomass on the corn, but ultimately we do sweet corn production and the quality of the sweet corn at harvest to determine whether that's agronomically feasible and economically solvent for the growers. In terms of the cover crops and weeds, we do a similar type of data collection where we do stand counts on the different evaluation timings and cover crop species. We do cover crop biomass and we do weed biomass by species also. But then towards the end of the season, we'll also take this biomass as well as capture the roots below these cover crops and test for the amount of nitrogen in particular in the cover crops, with the idea that that nitrogen that's in these cover crops is no longer available to leach into the groundwater below us. So that's a savings bank of sorts of fertilizer that can fertilize the sweet corn later in the season.
That brings me to my next question. In terms of this project, where are we in terms of the research status? When can a farmer expect some kind of a recommendation coming off of the findings we get from this research?
Sure, this is year one of this project. We'll do this particular project for 2 years. We do have some growers already experimenting on their own based on this early work, interseeding in potatoes and sweet corn with rye and mustard. So we'll learn from them also. This is a very collaborative project. So I think we'll see a slow integration of this type of work into commercial practice as we can find those sweet spots for the timings and the amount of fertilizer use and such to keep them in business while we do the research on a smaller scale.
Do you have any words for farmers who are interested in trying practices like this, especially interseeding cover crops in their vegetable production?
Yeah, I think there are a couple of pieces. Number one, I think the key that we're learning here is the timing. And again, trying not to be so early that we suppress our main crop, but not so late that the main crop knocks out the cover crop. So we're finding in general in sweet corn and potatoes, about a week to 2 weeks after we seed the main crop is appropriate to come back to interseed these cover crops. And in a lot of cases, to make it more practical, we can add the interseeding box onto the back of the potato hiller or the sweet corn side dressing machine. So it doesn't require additional passes through the field. And we can make it a much more feasible operation in that way.
And if anybody is interested in learning more about these practices, what kind of resources can they find, either from your program or Extension in general? Who can they talk to learn more about this practice?
Sure, I think the water quality team is a great starting point.
Thank you for the shout out.
As well as our UW-Madison vegetable team has a lot of resources on the agronomics and pest management available to be able to accomplish that. And this is part of a bigger piece in a rural partnership project, looking at ways that we can develop agronomically feasible solutions that are creative but grounded in reality. And working with the customers, the supply chain, the processors to meet their goals for regenerative agriculture, while also involving the community around us so that they're at the table as we develop solutions to protect this collective resource in groundwater below us.
Well, thank you so much for your wisdom today. And
thanks for having me.
As Jed mentioned, the Rural Partnership Program is a multi-year program, and we'll continue to keep you guys updated on our progress as well as input from our community to better solve the issue.
That sounds great. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Jed. Yep.